The 1962 Sino-Indian War, a conflict etched in the icy heights of the Himalayas, was born from a complex web of border disputes, strategic ambitions, and miscalculations. The seeds of discord were sown in the ambiguous demarcation of the boundary between India and China, a legacy of the British colonial era. Two primary areas of contention emerged: Aksai Chin in the west and the Northeast Frontier Agency, or NIFA, in the east. Aksai Chin, a high-altitude desert, assumed strategic importance for China due to a vital road connecting Tibet to Xinjiang. Constructed in the 1950s, this road traversed Aksai Chin, a region claimed by both India and China. India, on the other hand, inherited the McMahon Line as the southern boundary of its NAFA region, a demarcation drawn by the British in 1914 but never accepted by China. The McMahon Line, named after the British administrator who drew it, served as the de facto boundary between India and Tibet. However, its legitimacy remained a point of contention, with China asserting its historical claims over parts of NAFA, particularly the Tawang region. These overlapping claims over strategically significant territories created a volatile environment, setting the stage for future conflict. The lack of clarity regarding the border, coupled with historical baggage and rising nationalism in both nations, made peaceful resolution a daunting prospect. The dispute festered for years, with diplomatic efforts failing to bridge the chasm of mistrust and conflicting territorial claims. The stage was set for a showdown that would have far-reaching consequences for both India and China. China, under the leadership of Mao Zedong, harbored strategic anxieties and grievances that fueled its assertive stance on the border issue. The road through Aksai Chin, traversing territory claimed by India, was of paramount importance for China's control over Tibet and its western regions. This road served as a vital supply route for Chinese troops stationed in Tibet, ensuring Beijing's grip on the strategically sensitive region. India's decision to grant asylum to the Dalai Lama in 1959 following the Tibetan uprising further exacerbated tensions. China viewed this act as a direct challenge to its authority and a sign of Indian interference in its internal affairs. The presence of the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan government in exile on Indian soil became a major irritant in Sino-Indian relations. Moreover, China perceived India's growing international stature, particularly its leadership in the non-aligned movement, as a threat to its regional ambitions. The ideological divide between the two nations, with India championing democracy and China embracing communism, further widened the gulf. In the context of the Cold War, this ideological clash added another layer of complexity to the Sino-Indian rivalry. China's strategic calculations, driven by a combination of security concerns, territorial ambitions, and ideological rivalry, made a clash with India increasingly likely. The simmering border dispute provided a convenient pretext for China to assert its dominance and teach India a lesson. India's approach to the border dispute in the years leading up to the 1962 war was marked by a combination of misjudgment, miscalculation, and miscommunication. Following the Chinese suppression of the Tibetan uprising and the Dalai Lama's flight to India, New Delhi adopted a more assertive posture, known as the Forward Policy. This policy, implemented under the direction of Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and his advisors, involved establishing military outposts along the disputed border in an attempt to solidify India's claims. The underlying assumption was that China, preoccupied with internal challenges and international pressure, would not risk a full-blown military confrontation. However, India's intelligence assessments proved fatally flawed. The Indian leadership underestimated China's resolve and military capabilities, believing that logistical challenges would deter a major offensive in the Himalayas. Furthermore, the forward policy intended to deter Chinese aggression had the opposite effect, escalating tensions and providing Beijing with a casus belli. Communication between the two sides was woefully inadequate, further compounding the existing mistrust. Diplomatic efforts to resolve the border dispute yielded little progress, as both sides remained entrenched in their positions. With each passing month, the situation on the ground grew more volatile, pushing India and China closer to the brink of war. The simmering tensions along the Sino-Indian border finally erupted into open conflict on October 20, 1962. The Chinese People's Liberation Army, or PLA, launched coordinated offensives in both the eastern and western sectors, catching the Indian army by surprise. In the west, the PLA quickly overran Indian positions in Aksai Chin, advancing south of the disputed road. The eastern sector witnessed fierce fighting in the mountainous terrain of Nafa, with the PLA targeting key Indian positions. The initial Chinese assaults exposed the unpreparedness of the Indian army, which was ill-equipped and unaccustomed to fighting at high altitudes. The lack of adequate winter clothing, ammunition and communication equipment further compounded the challenges faced by the Indian soldiers. The suddenness and ferocity of the Chinese offensive shocked the Indian leadership and public alike. Nehru, who had believed that China would not resort to a full-scale war, was forced to confront the grim reality of India's military unpreparedness. The initial days of the war painted a bleak picture for India, as the PLA gained ground rapidly on both fronts. The 1962 war, initially perceived as a localized border skirmish, quickly escalated into a major military confrontation. The early Chinese successes exposed the weaknesses in India's defense posture and set the stage for a series of setbacks that would have a profound impact on the course of the war.